One thing I want to ask about is, right, obviously everyone knows the angle of, like, you guys actually do a real six-man rotation, like if it's Dust or Inferno, we see Nivera come in, depending on who it is he's replacing. Right, in this scenario, though, what I wanted to ask is, like, where does the idea come from? But more importantly, where does it go? Because no one's asking the second part, because here's the problem I see, is the real reason why I think most people never did a true six-man rotation like yours, where you rotate on maps, is because, like, Astralis is the best example. The reason why I knew they definitely weren't ever going to do that real rotation, I know they technically do it now with Bobsky, but I actually think they do that for other reasons, because I actually think he's worse than Zipnix on that map. I don't even think it's a fucking good move. But anyway, put that to one side. That's not what my point is about. My point is this, right? If you're Astralis, if you recruit a player and say this player's for real going to play, he's not just going to play like his one game, you know, or because this guy's off for a month. He's going to be a real player. I'm basically saying he's as good as at least one other player in my team, Astralis. So the problem becomes, if he really is that good, let's say I did a good job, I recruited the right guy, let's say in their case, it was Valde that they brought in or something, someone that everyone thinks could play in Astralis. The problem then eventually becomes, whoever the guy who plays the least maps are, might be 2 maps, might be 1 map, eventually, if he really is that good, he's not going to sit there for a year and only play 1 map, you know. Eventually, it becomes too good a problem. Like, it's a good problem to have. You want 6 players that are awesome. So the reason why I ask this is, I don't blame you guys for testing the experiment initially. Like I seen Nivera play when he was in Rex, but, you know, that team looked like they were just onliners. We haven't played any lands. So I was like, okay, let's say they're just trying to transition him into the team. They want to test him out, or they want to try him instead of someone else, or like everyone always says, maybe it's a way to keep people motivated to play if it's not their map, you know, so they don't get taken. The problem becomes, though, if in a year from now, Nivera's like, you know, top 5 AWPer in the world, eventually he's not just going to want to play 2 maps, is he? So how do you kind of see that approach? Because it surely can't be like a super long-term approach, right?
Well, it depends of a lot of things. I mean, obviously, if a player come in the team and plays super well, like better than the others, obviously you have to replace to replace him on other maps. You need to give him more credits. That's life. That's normal. And I mean, in the sport, it's happening, and I think it's a good mix. We just need to have a good mix between that. I mean, it's really nice. For one thing that's really important is it's really nice to have that system, because it helps everyone, because everyone to get better in everything, to be a better teammate, to be a better player, to be better on his position, etc. Because when you know that someone is right behind you, that has 2 maps, that plays super well on 2 maps, you feel like, okay, this guy is already good on 2 maps, I'm not really good on 1. He may be gonna take my place. And obviously, as you said, if you playing 2 maps is not enough, and that's why he plays 3 maps right now, Nivera. So it's a good mix for him, okay. I think. For now, maybe he's gonna play more in the future, maybe less, depends. And that's the mentality of the coach, is that it's not gonna be for 6 months. If tomorrow he sees that Nivera is not good on the map, or if Mizuta is not good, or if Shox is not good on another map, he's gonna change. He's gonna change to swap another player, etc. So this mix, is gonna help us, because we're not. So
by the way, just so I'm clear here,
we're not gonna keep the roster if we perform bad on the map. We're going to swap up. Like, for example...
Just to clarify, though, you're also, just because I think fans aren't going to get this, you're also not saying it's just Nivera who swaps in and out. Potentially it could be another player, right? Like maybe Nivera plays 5 maps and someone else who swaps in and out for 2 maps, right?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. That can be possible. For example, Mizuta is doing exams this year, and it's really hard for him to do both, and sometimes he's pretty tired. So that's why we left another map to Nivera, because to just help Kevin to be good on the 3 maps he played, or 4 maps, sorry, and can do his exam on the side. So yeah, we're not in the way that Nivera is gonna play 2 maps, or Shox gonna play 5 maps, or Apex is gonna play 6 maps. It's gonna be with the level we have on the moment. If we can change, if we can swap up, if a player is not good for 6 months on a position, etc. We just want to make those things, and I think if you do that in that sense, it's gonna work. For example, you cannot have 6 always have 6 good maps. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And for example, like Astralis are not playing as good as they were on Nuke, and Bobsky is playing, but maybe tomorrow Xipni is gonna take the place, because I mean that's how I see the thing. But that's how it goes with us. Sometimes you have a less good map, and you think about, okay, why this map isn't good enough. Sometimes someone is not playing as his best. Someone is not feeling good on the map. Someone maybe this duo is not working well together, and etc. And that's why we're trying to swipe up. And I think it can work if all players are dedicated in that sense. And obviously, it's not easy. That's why you need a really good atmosphere in the team. Otherwise, it will not work. And for example, something I can say is that it helps Shocks, for example. Shocks from that moment is... Shocks always has periods, like yours. Exactly like yours. He has periods. And he has period when he's not feeling good, when nothing is going good, etc. And when he has period when he's like the 2015-16 Shocks doing clutches, etc., etc. And since Nivera joined it, I don't feel he's been... a bad teammate or a bad player for 5 months now. So yeah, obviously he's not playing on Inferno, for example. Sometimes it's not really easy for him because it's a third map of the best of 3 most of the time.
Yeah.
So, but he accepts it. He accepts it because the coach said it, and he agrees with the coach. And when you're coming in Vitality, that's the way you need to think. Otherwise, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thing is, what he said at the end there, Liggy, is the game changer, right? It's that the coach can decide these things. Because I tell you what, if you go to a past team that it's Sharks, could be any great player, mate, half the time you wouldn't even be able to get the moves done just because of the owner. Like, the owner would be like, that's my guy. Like, I paid X million for him, or, he used to be the best player. They wouldn't even be on the table to do some of these moves. So to me, there's another thing I'll give props to Vitality. They actually empowered the coaching staff to make these moves. Like, that's very bold if it's true that you really can replace any player. I mean, in theory, it wouldn't be Zero, obviously, but, in theory, it could be if it was the right map, if someone played specialist role.
Right, that's why these people are successful. They know what they're doing. They know what they're... Like Vitality, they're such a huge brand. I can only imagine, like, from where the people are, from what I see, they're in Formula One or whatsoever, in everything involved. So they're professionals, just like I personally see Astralis is. And it's first of all the CEOs and the heads of the teams that have to make the players know or give the coach all this trust, full trust,
the power,
and to tell him or give him the feeling, okay, it is your thing, and if you fail, it is your failure. I'm sorry, but you have this feeling as a coach. When once you have this feeling from your organization, that's why I think, for example, Vitality or let's take Astralis as an example. They are not involved in too many games. Their main focus is Counter-Strike. That's why, and obviously they have Zonic, for example. But let's take a Cloud9 as an example. They have League of Legends, way higher rated than Counter-Strike is. They have other different games, for example, and their focus is not too much on Counter-Strike. So they have their manager. I don't know who it is. Now it's like Henry G. I think he's having a different approach. But back then, I think they were just throwing the team together. Do whatever you want. You have a coach, you have a manager. But that's it. So the team is just living for itself. Team is playing for itself. And nobody's talking about to Jack. Nobody's talking about to I don't know who. So they're living in their own world, and these players are creating a little bubble. The coach, it's depending. Like, not every team is the same, but there's many occasions I can imagine that teams that play bad, they push the fault on the coach, just so they can keep their job.
Yes. I mean, that's a classic thing we in Richard always say on By the Numbers. Like, the first person to get the blame is always the coach.
Yes, I don't blame the players because it's the org's fault. It's the organization's fault that they give these players this power.
Yes.
Why do you take a coach? Why do you give me a coach? What am I a coach for? To just sit around and just analyze games? I'm an analyst then. I'm not a coach.
That's the problem we had.
And if I have to teach these kids, I also have to have the power over these guys to tell them, when do you wake up sometimes? When we're on LAN, I tell you, you awake at 9 a.m. and be on the breakfast table. And you have to make these people know, your players know, that the coach is in charge of that. He's in charge of you. He will, if you fail, it's coach's fault. There's no blame to you. Simple as that.
That's how it works on for us, and that's how it needs to work. I mean, French has been really bad because of that, because players have the power. And when players have the power, it's a disaster, because it means that some players are on a higher level than the others. So you're not on the same note. You're like, there is a king between the players, and that's not how it works. And I see the same in PSG in football. Like That's how it works. Like the feel like it's more between the owners and the players than with the coach, and that's why maybe they're not enough successful in big matches. And I mean, I always felt that it was how it need to be, having the coach having all the power, having all the power on the transfers, on etc. Like maybe sometimes it's not possible because it may be too costly, but for the rest, it's really important to have people like your staff having this power.
Let me think. Well, one thing I would say about that, by the way, is that's also something where another thing that a coach can do in your case, like actually I think the Masuta example is probably the best one, because as you say, it took that many months to form him into the player that he's been like the last couple of months where he's been much better. But no one else would give a player that much time. Like you just cut him at, like even if it's the same players, you might cut him like 3 months in, because you might just go, look, we tried, it failed, he was just okay, or he's having issues, because he's been put straight to tier 1. Like in that scenario, I could see a lot of ways that goes wrong. So I think of some of the old French teams. Your scene especially was one of the worst I've ever seen for kicking players that aren't even bad at the game. You just don't like them anymore. Like that's what, like in the modern day, the teams that are the really good organizations, if someone gets kicked, it's like he's still good, but why was he kicked? Always behind the scenes, someone tells me, look, he just did some shit that was out of control. Like he was like egotistical, or he was ruining things. Like basically, you don't, in theory, get kicked for those reasons anymore. You're not supposed to get kicked because we had an argument, or I think you should in-game lead differently. Like I feel like your scene could have been rescued a long time ago if we'd have had these coaches who had that. Because I see the same thing in G2, mate. Like from the time that Malik actually had control over that team, it's night and day compared to what it used to be like when the superstar egos ran the team.
Yeah, but we won more events. I'm just kidding. It's kind of true, but yeah, obviously, like G2 after for example, when they kicked us, NBK and me, and tried to form the existence, etc. When it's not the players that had the power, but kinda for that period. And since they tried to come back, they were not successful until they took Malek and Nyak. They reunited together to just recreate the atmosphere that they were like above everyone, and they were committing for their players. And if it's a mistake, they're doing mistakes in maybe a player pick or etc. Okay, it's their fault, and they have to talk to the boss, to the guy who is giving the money. But otherwise, it's not your fault. So it's the way to success, and that's how it is in sports most of the time. And I think that's exactly when I see those kind of new team coming with a lot of money. They just, first of all, they want the players, like they don't want the staff around that, because the staff is the most important. If you don't have the right people to get to form your guys, to create them in the same mindset, etc., it's gonna be really hard. You maybe we'll have a honeymoon period, but otherwise it will not work, and that's 100% sure thing. So see if any big organization is listening to us, by right peoples first, and then the players.
Yes, put it this way, when last year, I'm not going to be doing it from now on, because you see all the fucking teams listen, but when last year I would basically, I was almost like the unofficial fucking general manager for the Flashpoint teams. Like every player that was good, who I thought was available, I would put in the fucking group chat, and this where all the teams are, like this player's available, he can play this role. I'd even give him like some commentary, like this guy's a gamble, take him if you want to try a new player, this guy's a legend, but he might be a good player later, a whole bunch of names. Sadly, one of the areas that they ignored the most was, obviously anyone who watches the game can see if it's a really skilled player, and I'm like, this guy's good and he's available, right? Anyone could do that. But the problem with the coaches is you have to know the scene to know if they actually know what they're talking about. So I have to say, the way I knew that a lot of big orgs weren't interested in spending money on CS wasn't just that they passed on the Nico super team or fucking Evil Geniuses. It's not those. Like, those ones are obvious. It's when I would tell some of the ones that are like brand new to CS, here's what you do. You tell me you have because some of them were telling me, by the way, like I have $5 million I will spend. I was like, well then I'll stop like shopping around for it. I can tell you who to go get now. So the first thing you do is you go and you get someone like Zonic and you tell him, right, you're going to be the development like lead of this entire project. I'm going to pay you 5 times what I pay you at you start, like we're saying here, you start with the staff. Because the idea is, I trust Zonic, where even if the first 3 players coming in aren't amazing, he's going to find them eventually. And the structure that they're then going to come into, then when you have the good players, you're going to take off. And by the way, think of what someone like Astralis loses if a player like that goes. I agree. Like that's probably the most misunderstood part. Because we're not even talking purely Zonic for like his mind for the game. We're talking about what is the atmosphere he created, what is the authority structure, how does he win over newer players, older players. Like, these are skills that are like worth, I mean, in English you'd say like they're worth their weight in gold. Like, you can't measure how important that is. It's more than what you see in the server.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Like, also when you put such a guy as your general manager or whatever you call him, it's gonna help you to get the players you want, because when they see, okay, they got Zonic from Astralis, they got that guy, such a legendary coach already, etc. They will be, they say, okay, it's a good thing to do. It's not like any other organization that just want to pay us a lot. It's a real project. You see a real interesting project, and that's what I think is the most important. For with the experience I have now, because when you're a young player, you don't see things like that because you have no experience and you can just be drove by the money. But in that sense, if that's what I'm talking sometimes. I will not join another team even if it's for twice my salary, because I'm happy where I am, and you never know what's on the other way. And the other way, you know what you have, and it's really precious. And that's what I always say to myself when, for example, when we lost the Globals final, etc. I just say it's fine. I love my team. I'm happy where I am, and we're just gonna grind and get even better, etc. And I think that's the right mentality to have in that sense.
I think we should ask about. Oh, so go on, Gear.
No, I just wanted to mention it's like the same thing. What I was thinking about Thompson, that he had so many other opportunities that he just denied because he followed his heart in this like moment. He followed his heart, his passion, and his belief, and he turned down offers like FaZe and whatsoever. So I just know, like, being happy. Look, even if he would have joined FaZe, God fucking knows what would have happened 6 months after.
Of course.
He knows he has his place. I'm sure Apex knows he's getting well paid and everything. His life is good where he is right now. On top of that, his team is also perfect. That makes his life twice as better, rather than having twice the money. So he's happy in both ways.